My husband tried to humiliate me at our daughter's graduation, announcing he was leaving me with his girlfriend right there in front of everyone. The crowd went silent, but I stayed calm and gave him an envelope. Seconds later his face changed and he screamed, "Why?" My husband stood up while they were still calling names, like he couldn't wait another second. We were in the bleachers of the high school gym, the kind with old blue paint chipped off the metal and banners hanging crooked from the rafters. The band had just finished a loud, messy version of Pomp and Circumstance. Our daughter's class was lined up in navy robes, trying to look serious and not sweat through the fabric. I was holding my phone in one hand, ready to record when I heard his chair scrape. "Before they call Maya," he said, voice carrying farther than it should have, "I want to say something." I turned toward him. I saw the look on his face, that tight excitement he gets when he thinks he's about to win. People around us started to glance over, annoyed at first. Then they realized it wasn't a joke. "I've decided to start a new life without you, Claire," he said. "I'm done pretending. I'm leaving." The gym went quiet in a way that felt like someone shut the air off. I heard the squeak of a sneaker on the polished floor. I heard the principal stop talking, probably trying to figure out if he should step in or let the mess burn out on its own. I heard my own heartbeat thudding in my ears. I looked past him and saw her sitting 2 rows down with our friends. The same women I did PTA nights with, the same couples we hosted 4th of July cookouts with. She was wearing a white sundress like it was brunch instead of a graduation. She didn't look embarrassed. She looked ready. Like she'd practiced this moment in her head. Our friends were frozen. Linda's hand was half raised over her mouth like she'd been caught in a cough. Nate looked down at his shoes. Nobody said a word. Everybody just stared at me like I was a live wire. Somewhere on the floor Maya's class started shifting, their heads turning toward the bleachers. I saw my daughter's face, confused and sharp all at once because she got that from me. She wasn't a little kid anymore. She knew what silence meant. I should have fallen apart. I should have stood up and yelled or cried or walked out. 10 years ago maybe I would have. But something happened to me in the last year. Something got worn down past the point of being scared. I took a breath and felt my shoulders settle. "Congratulations on your honesty," I said. My voice sounded normal. My own ears didn't believe it. A couple people blinked like they didn't hear me right. My husband's smile twitched. He expected a fight. He expected me to beg. He expected me to make a scene so he could say later I ruined graduation. I leaned into my tote bag and pulled out a plain envelope. Nothing fancy. Just a white business envelope with his full name in black ink. I'd written it at the kitchen table last night while the dishwasher ran and the dog snored under my feet. I handed it to him. He looked at it like it might explode. "What's this?" "Open it," I said. "You wanted a moment. Here's yours." His girlfriend straightened in her seat. I saw her hand slide onto her knee. Her eyes were locked on the envelope. She already knew about me obviously, but she didn't know about this. My husband tore it open right there in front of the whole gym. Paper slid out. His eyes dropped to it. I watched his face change in real time like someone pulled a rug out from under him and he was trying to find the floor. "No," he muttered, then louder. "No. What is this?" He flipped the pages fast like speed could make words disappear. Then he started screaming. "What the hell is this, Claire? What did you do? You can't do this." His voice cracked on the last word. The gym gasped, not because he had yelled but because he sounded scared. He sounded like someone who'd just stepped in front of a truck. The principal finally said, "Sir." But my husband didn't even hear him. His hands were shaking. The papers flapped in the air. Maya was on the floor with her class staring up at us. I could see her breathing hard, but her chin stayed up. That was my girl. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "You're being served," I said. He snapped his head toward me. "Served with what? You think you can just—" "With the divorce petition," I said. "And the restraining order. Temporary. The hearing date is on the 2nd page." The girlfriend's mouth opened. "Restraining order?" she whispered to him like I wasn't right there. He ignored her. "On what grounds?" "That's insane." I nodded at the top sheet in his hand. "Read it again." "It's not insane. It's documented." That part was why he was screaming. Not because of the divorce. He'd been asking for that in 100 small ways for months. The screaming was because the envelope didn't just have divorce papers. It had copies of the police report from October, the photos from my phone, the text messages he'd sent after he sobered up and tried to backpedal. It had my doctor's note from the bruise on my ribs. It had the witness statement from the neighbor who heard him slam the door so hard the frame splintered. He'd forgotten the details. Men like him always do. They remember the feeling of power, not the trail they leave. He lowered his voice a notch, but his eyes were wild. You're trying to ruin me in front of everyone. I looked around at the crowd. Faces were stiff with shock, but I also saw the shift. People were seeing him clearly for the first time. Not the friendly guy who coached Little League. Not the jokey husband at barbecues. The man who did what he wanted and counted on my silence to clean it up. Ruin you? I said quietly. You ruined yourself at my daughter's graduation. He made a sound in his throat like a growl that didn't know where to go. The principal had stepped closer now with a security guard. My husband looked like he wanted to say more, but he didn't want to be dragged out in front of the whole town. Pride is a leash if you know how to pull it. The girlfriend finally stood up, shaky. Mark, what is she talking about? He turned on her, then stopped because he couldn't lie fast enough. She looked at me, and for a second there was something like fear and anger mixed together, but it wasn't aimed at me. It was aimed at him. She'd come for a clean exit story, not court papers. The principal said, "Ma'am, sir, please." His voice was tired, like he'd rather be anywhere else. I looked down at Maya and raced my phone again. They're about to call your name, I told her. I didn't shout it. I just said it like we were in the kitchen. She held my eyes and gave a small nod. That nod wrecked me more than anything else all day. My husband leaned toward me, voice low and venomous. You planned this. I thought about that word for a second. Planned. Like it was a crime to stop bleeding. I planned to protect us, I said. Yes. As I had planned it. Not the timing of his stunt. I didn't know he'd do that. But I'd planned for the day he'd try to turn the story into me being the villain. I'd spent too many nights listening to him say I was lucky he stayed, that nobody else would want a woman with stretch marks and a part-time job and a kid headed to college. I'd spent too many mornings hiding bruises under a cardigan at work, smiling at customers while my insides went quiet. I worked the front desk at a community clinic. Not glamorous. Little health benefits, a paycheck that barely caught up with rent and car insurance. I paid the water bill late more times than I can count. My mom's dementia meds were a monthly math problem. He knew all that, and still he used money like a weapon. He'd take half his check and disappear for days and then come home talking about how hard he worked, like I hadn't been up at 5 a.m. packing lunches and folding laundry and helping Maya apply to colleges with the internet cutting out because I forgot the bill. After October, I stopped telling myself he'd change. I bought a little safe and kept our important papers in it. I opened a bank account in my name only. I talked to a lawyer after Maya went to sleep. I talked to a counselor at the clinic who slid me a list of resources without making me feel small. I learned words like protective order and pattern of behavior, and you're not overreacting. I didn't want revenge at first. I wanted peace. But revenge showed up anyway, not as a fantasy, but as a simple refusal to keep shielding him from consequences. The security guard told Mark he had to leave. He started to protest, then saw everyone watching and clamped his mouth shut. He folded the papers like they were filthy and shoved them into the envelope. His girlfriend grabbed her purse and followed him like she didn't know what else to do. Their steps echoed against the gym floor on the way out. When the door closed behind them, the gym breathed again. The principal cleared his throat, tried to reset the program. The band stumbled into another song. A few people leaned toward me like they wanted to ask if I was okay, but I held up my hand gently. Not now. Maya Alvarez, the announcer called. My daughter walked across that stage like she owned the ground under her feet. She didn't look toward the bleachers. She didn't flinch. She took her diploma, shook the principal's hand and smiled a real smile, one that said she knew who she was even if her father didn't. I recorded every second. My hand still shook, but I recorded it. After the ceremony, Maya found me outside by the parking lot. Families were taking photos in the sun, hugging, crying happy tears. I stood there holding a bouquet that I'd bought at Kroger that morning with the last 20 in my wallet. She walked right up and hugged me hard. You okay? She whispered. I swallowed. Are you okay? She pulled back and looked at me with those serious eyes. I'm not surprised, she said. I just didn't want him to do it today. I didn't either, I admitted. She glanced toward the building like she expected him to come storming back. What was in that envelope? Things he needed to see, I said. I didn't want to dump the whole world on her shoulders. Not today. She nodded like she got it. Good. We stood there a second longer. The sun was warm on our faces, the kind of early summer heat that smells like asphalt and cut grass. I felt wrecked and steady at the same time. On the drive home, she played with the tassel on her cap. I'm still going to college, she said, more like a promise than a question. Yeah, I said. You are. We'll figure out money. We will, I said, and I meant it. It wasn't going to be easy. I'd already looked up scholarship appeals, extra shifts, maybe selling the old Honda and taking the bus. But it was a different kind of hard now. A hard that didn't include fear of what mood he'd come home in. That night, after we ate takeout on the couch and watched a dumb movie to keep the day from folding in on itself, Maya went to bed and I stood alone in the kitchen. The house was quiet in that deep way it gets when a big thing is finally over. I found myself waiting for the crash of a door, a slammed cabinet, a voice yelling my name. It didn't come. My phone buzzed. A message from Linda. If you need anything, I'm here. Proud of you. Another from my coworker Tanya. You didn't deserve that. Tell me what you need. Small things, but they landed like a hand on my back. I looked at the envelope I'd kept a copy of on the counter, the same plain white paper that had made him scream. I didn't feel joy. I felt something cleaner. Like I'd stepped out of a dark room into air that actually belonged to me. I went to the window and watched the streetlights spill onto the quiet road. Somewhere a dog barked, then stopped. I thought about how I'd spent years shrinking to keep someone else comfortable, and how fast life opened up once I stopped doing that. I didn't know what the court would say, how Mark would spin this to people who weren't there, how tight things would get before they got better. But I knew this. My daughter saw me stand up without breaking. She saw me protect us in a way that didn't need to be loud to be real. That felt like a kind of miracle I could live with. Not a sudden happy ending. Just the start of something honest. Something ours.